Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
You know what's nice? It says in the intro there that we're two guys on our own path to recovery, right? But isn't it nice to know that there's a community of people out there that are on that same path?
You know what? I think that is one of the secrets of success, because I know when I was drinking, it was an alone game.
Right.
It was an isolated, solo, by myself. And I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't want to connect with anybody, because then I just looked worse than I really felt, because now somebody else knows how bad I am. And so I isolated, and that was very dangerous. So the fact that there's somebody else on the path with me, in fact, there's millions of the people on the path with me. I love it. I love how you put that.
You know, it's funny because when I started out, I was party Mike, right? So there was nothing isolated about me. I'm out there. I'm getting a buzz. I'm having a good time. I want to be in a crowd. I want to be party Mike, right? And it's funny how quickly, in retrospect, it morphed from social silliness to solitude and isolation. It's amazing how the drug does that.
So I think you can say that for everybody, right? I think it always starts fun. I don't think anybody goes to their basement when they're 16 and says, you know what, I'm going to spend the weekend in the basement by myself in the darkness, and I stole my parents' booze. I think I think most people, or if not all, I hate to use the word all, but I think most people start out, it's a party.
Right.
And I think that's one of the signs of crossing the line, is because I think when you start to isolate, I think your brain says that this is more important than anything else.
Right.
I'd rather just worship my bottle than have people, society, whatever is out there bother me.
Right. And you know,
or there's shame and embarrassment.
That's
that
right.
I'm going to drink a handle.
But that's what brought us to this podcast, was that darkness, right? But I'm thinking there's probably people listening to us, maybe the sober curious, that are like, well, I'm not that bad. I'm not isolating. I'm still out there at the bars every Friday and Saturday night. I guess what I'm suggesting, for me, there was a natural transition to where it came from, recreational to requirement. And at some point I crossed that line, and I guess I'm speaking to that seeker, that sober curious, and saying, maybe it won't be your story, but maybe it will. Well,
so to that point, is it okay to say, I'm getting some clicking here in my brain, the coffee's kicking in. Is it okay to say that once you start drinking, for most people, there's two paths. There's either the path where it gets progressively worse, and you can sit there today, for the sober curious, you can sit there and you can analyze yourself out.
Sure,
you can
absolutely.
Say, I still have a good job.
I
still make a lot of money.
I did it myself.
Hey, I went to the gym last week.
Sure.
What the fuck? It's not too bad. What I can say is, if you're asking those questions and if you're mulling that out in your mind, I think my opinion, non-medical, I have no degrees. My medical is, if you are already processing that in your brain and you're trying to figure that out, you've crossed the line.
Right.
Or I shouldn't say you crossed the line.
You're about to.
You're on the path.
You're on the path, right.
You're on the path of it getting progressively worse.
Right.
And I have proven personally, you have, and thousands of other stories that I've heard, it gets progressively worse. It's almost guaranteed.
Right.
And I'm sponsoring a guy right now, and it's not so bad for him. Still has a good job. He's had some incidents. He's navigated around those incidents. He's gotten out of them. He's gotten in hot water. And now he's in lukewarm water, back in hot water. Now he's in, sitting on the lounge chair, right? But I'm and he's sitting there, and I just see him. I have a better view of where he's at on the path, and I can't, there's nothing I can say to prevent.
No.
I just
I don't think anyone could have said to me.
I'm just sharing my story,
right.
and he's actually said to me, "Well, I don't need to do all that because it's not that bad." I said, "Okay,
right.
just wait."
Right.
And I've watched him go through progressively worse episodes. So if you're sober curious and you're asking these questions, pay attention.
Right. And look,
there's a reason why your brain's going through that.
Well, there's also a reason why you're listening to this episode. You're one of two people. You're either just stumbled upon us because you're curious, or you're on the path, and we're just walking the path together and building strength off of each other, right? So those are the two audiences that are listening. So if you're listening, you know what we're talking about, and you're cognizant of the fact that, of the downfall, the dangers of continuing down that nasty path.
That's why people call it the yets.
Yeah, right.
People are like, I haven't lost my job yet.
Yet.
Right?
Yeah.
So I do want to talk about the second
Yes.
path, and the second path is the path to recovery.
Right.
And there's no shortcut. I like to watch Everest, people that climb Everest.
Mm-hmm.
There's no shortcut. There is no shortcut. It is one step in front of the other. And so the way I've been taught is my recovery is progressive also.
Mm-hmm.
It gets better every single day. I have to keep putting the next foot in front of the other, just like the people going to Everest. And it's just, there's no shortcut. Right?
So there's no
like
trolley that brings you up to the top of Everest?
They can't.
Because I would like to get on that trolley.
Forget it.
Okay.
Forget it. They can't even get helicopters up there because there's no oxygen. The only way to the top of Everest is one step at a time.
Right. Love it. Love it. So what happens what happens on that path? And that's kind of segue to our topic today. I mean, once you get a groove, because I'm sure the bottom of Everest, and I've never climbed it, just as a total disclaimer and transparency, I've never climbed Mount Everest, but I would think that the first steps are kind of the toughest because you're looking at an entire mountain you need to climb. And so those first steps are dogging. You've got your equipment, right? But once you get a pace, do you think I don't know. I should have done some research. But do you think it gets easier?
No. Because the elements get harder.
Oh,
so,
okay, interesting.
So I think this is a good metaphor, right? So first of all, I have researched, costs $100,000 and I will never climb Everest. I don't have that. I just don't have that in me.
Never say never.
No, I can say never.
Okay.
I just don't have it in me. But I have researched, so base camp, I have researched a hiking trip to base camp. And I have a buddy of mine, and I think it would be great for him and I to do this together. He loves to hike. He loves fitness. He loves all that crap. He loves endurance.
Tommy?
Yep. He loves all that stuff. And so I researched it. And there is it takes a 2-week grueling hike to get to base camp.
And base camp is on the bottom of the mountain?
Yes.
So you haven't even begun to. This is just getting. This is
to the entrance gate.
Wow.
2-week.
And again, there's no trolley because I would take the trolley.
Well, okay. So they probably have helicopters that'll drop you off at base camp.
Okay.
They have helicopters that go to base camp.
Let's call those rehab.
Yeah. So I'm telling you, it is an effort to get to base camp, but I hear it's life changing. So I researched it and I think it's cool, right? But then, then you have all the tools and equipment, right?
Right.
But see, what's harder about the difference between the path to Everest and the path to recovery is that when you go to Everest, every next step is harder because of the elements.
Okay.
Right? And all your preparation down at base camp, helps you attack those challenges. Elements such as wind, elements such as weather, elements such as lack of oxygen, the actual physical elements of the ice and crevasses and what you have to do, get there. And I think that's opposite in recovery. I think as you prepare and enter recovery, which is base camp, right? Rehab, I think as you enter that, I think if you surrender and if you get out of your head and get out of your ego because you think you know better,
right.
I think as you progress on the recovery path, the easier it gets.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you get some wind behind your back. You have built, some momentum. You've built some proof. You've seen some facts. You've been able to get through situations that you don't have to drink through anymore. You're actually getting some confidence back. You're building a team around you of some trusted, brothers or sisters around you, right? So I think as you progress in my recovery today at roughly 8 years is not as hard as it was the first year. Mm-hmm. Because I've got a team, I've got tools, I've got, surrender. I have found a higher power that I have a relationship with. I have, practices and, methods that I go through and I'm disciplined with those, So I don't think recovery path is the same as the Everest path.
Let me ask you this.
That makes sense?
This is a dumb question.
And I have no idea what
once you hit the top of Mount Everest, how do you get down?
So here's the fact.
Yeah.
There's more death coming down than there is going up.
Okay, so you're walking down. Again, they don't copter you out of there.
There's no choppers. There's no oxygen.
I know,
you can't run.
Well, oxygen's overrated, dude.
There
listen,
are people that try to go to the top of Everest with no oxygen.
So I'm looking at this as the analogy to recovery. And once you've kind of got through the tough times, you got to the top, now you got to come down. But I love what you said. You've got the wind behind your back. You've got less supplies. You're coming down. But what you said is more people die. So the point is, I see that as like a relapse or just a misstep. You're so focused maybe on the way up that on the way down, maybe you got a misstep or a miscalculation or right? I mean, does that make sense?
Part of the reason, there's two reasons why there's more death on the way down than going up.
Why?
One reason is the physical, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are just tapped out.
Right.
But the real reason, the majority of the reason, again, I'm not an expert. I just watch it on TV. But the real focus is people mentally, they think they got it.
Yeah, right. There you go.
They say, I've got it. I got the Polaroid.
That's what I'm saying.
on.
They've lost their edge.
I've got the Polaroid with my flag on top of Everest.
What's a Polaroid?
Yeah, half our audience won't even know. And
yeah, you got the flag. And so you lose. You take your eye off the ball of safety.
The intensity and focus. And maybe that's, hey, I got 1 year sobriety. I don't need to go to all those meetings.
I know, right?
I don't need to go to all those. I got 3 years sobriety. Right. I don't need to sponsor people. I'm busy, And when in reality, like Everest, you have to focus more. Right? Because, there's things coming at you. And the worst thing in this program, the worst thing in this world, I think, is ego. I've got this.
Right.
And those people at Everest, they get the top. They're all proud. Their sponsors are proud. I'm not sure if you can call people from Everest. I think people use satellite phones or whatever. And they celebrate, and they come and they take their eye off the ball, and they're like, "Oh, I've got this."
Mm-hmm. The thing is that for me, I perk up in a meeting when I hear the guy with 4 years, ding, ding, ding. That's where I'm at, saying I had 4 years and I went back out there. Man, my whole body language changed. My ears perk up.
Mine still does
and
too.
I want to be the best friend to that guy but his story is typically the same. And it's exactly what you said. They got complacent. That's the word I hear. They got complacent. They stopped working the program. I would think that I should be able to go on muscle memory now. That's not my case.
There is no muscle memory.
That's not my case. I need to keep working it. And like the guy coming down from Everest, I need to stay focused because I don't want to be that guy that dies.
Yeah, so I'm with you, man. When people are like, hey, I had 15 years and I relapsed, I'm like, what in the world? I mean, that scares me because
it scares the
I
snot out
can't
of me.
afford a relapse.
No.
I just know, and man, Mikey, I wish I had $1, and I'm going to be a dick here, but I wish I had $1 for everybody who says, oh, I wouldn't survive another relapse.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
And then they relapse 14 more times.
Yeah, right.
You know, and hey, you know what? I get it. I was a relapse king. You weren't. I was. You know, and I mean, I really don't believe. I don't know what would happen if I relapsed. I don't really put a lot of thought into it. I think if I relapsed, I would hope that I would snap back immediately in my community and tools that I've built. I would just snap back and get right back into it and say, man,
Well, you don't lose what you learned.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I hear that a lot about people there that relapse and they want to soften a relapse.
Right.
You know, they're like, well, hey, it's okay that you relapsed. You know, just think of all you learned in those 6 months when you didn't drink, right? Nobody can take those sober days away from you.
Yeah, right.
But guess what? It's kind of hard not to tell somebody when they're in the coffin because they died from their relapse. Right. And you and I both know people that have done that.
Yep.
So, you know, people that are soft on relapse, I get it. I'm not trying to beat anybody up, but I'm just trying to say relapse is a very serious thing.
Right.
You know, and
and nobody's immune to it. I mean, you know, I sit here like you said, oh, you're the relapse king and I'm not. Hold on a second. That's today. As of today, that's my story. That's not. I have to work on preparing my story for tomorrow. I'm not immune to a relapse, man. It's cunning, baffling, and powerful, as the steps say. I still have thoughts. I mean, I think I shared this the other day. Maybe I didn't, but I had a notion the other day when I woke up that I was not hungover. And you want to know the wackiest thing? This is crazy brain talk. I said, I kind of missed that. No, that's what my brain said.
Well, because I think there's parts of us, there's parts of the
I
brain.
didn't miss the party. I missed the hangover. How
the
sick
chaos.
is that?
No, that's the chaos of it. And I think, you know, I think you can be attracted to your illness. There's a guy years ago I knew that gambled, and he actually liked to lose.
Oh.
And he said, I said, why do you like to? Why would you make that bet? You know you're going to lose. He goes, I love the feeling of losing. And I think it's right what you're saying. You love the feeling of being hungover at times.
Right. It was crazy,
I
Glenn.
know. And hey, there's still times that I still think about drinking.
Yeah. I mean, honestly.
I just don't.
Yeah, right.
But I don't because I do stuff, so I don't.
Right.
But I'm telling you, my life right now is insanely busy. And if you don't pay attention, if you don't have people around you, right, that are watching you, you know, I mean, I actually went a week without a meeting, and I don't think I've done that. I might have in the last 5 years, I might have done it 4 times, and I was on vacation all those 4 times. But I was just going through life, and I'm like, Glenn, what are you doing, man? I started immediately jumping back on meetings.
Right.
You know, and because I know what I know is from those people that you reference, you know, with 8 years or 4 years or 15 years, whatever. What I know about their relapse, almost 100% of the time, is I stopped going to meetings.
Right.
That was like a precursor, or that was a common theme.
Right.
So, I mean, I have gone to meetings and I've drank, right? But what I know about those people, and I don't want to be one of those people.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know. I think, you know, I think our topic was supposed to be sobriety is a superpower, right?
Yeah, that's what we came into the coffee with, right?
Right, which, you know, I believe sobriety is a superpower. I have done
it gets you up and down the summit.
Yeah, I have done a lot of great things in my life, but in sobriety, being sober, I am putting them to shame.
Right.
The stuff I'm doing, and I'm not bragging. I'm just saying. I mean, anything from taking the trash out, you know, without expecting an attaboy. I mean, my entire life, I wanted a pat on the back. I wanted you to recognize that I took the trash out and say, "Oh, Glenn, good job."
But these are the things you learned climbing up the mountain,
step by step.
Then these are the things that you take with you as you're coming down the mountain.
Yeah, I think sobriety is a journey, and I watch those people who climb Everest, and there's something inside them that is a superpower. When you have to fight every step, I mean, there's times they will spend, I forget the names of each one, but towards the end, like that last 16 hours, you go 800 feet. I mean, can you imagine that?
No, that's crazy.
And every step is belaboring. Yeah. I mean, you're sucking oxygen and you're making sure you're all tied in. And hey, if you want to make this episode about Everest, right? Let's really focus in on who is the success of Everest. Is it the person who has the North Face, 50 below zero coat on with the oxygen mask and, climbing step by step? I mean, I think that's kind of cool, but I'm telling you, they would not be able to do that without those Sherpas. Without the people that go before them and put those tie rods in the ground to blaze the path, and they're the folks from Nepal, the Sherpas who go up, and they go up every year, and they set the trail for the people to follow.
I love that.
So if you want to, and I'm telling you, you can say whatever you want about the guy, and there's a lot to be said about the guys that climb Everest.
Right.
That's
sure.
a win. That is a win. Yeah. But I'm telling you, they would not be able to do it without the Sherpas who blaze the path and prep the path. Like, for example,
awesome,
you need a lot of oxygen, right?
Right.
Who takes those 16 tanks of oxygen up there and strategically places them in the mountain so when you need to get there and you need oxygen, the oxygen's there?
They got oxygen just on the mountain?
Oh, absolutely. It's rare to go to Everest without tanks of oxygen. Huh. There's only a handful of people that have scaled Everest without oxygen.
Do you scale alone or do you scale with a team?
So you always scale with a team. But the point I'm making about the Sherpas is the Sherpas carry on their backs like mules. They carry supplies, and they strategically place them up on the mountain, including these 16 tanks of oxygen that you need to live.
Right.
So if we want to make this episode about Everest, I think those Sherpas are sponsors.
Okay.
Because my sponsor knew enough about climbing Everest that he knew, hey, Glenn's at this mark, Glenn's going to need this, right? Mikey's going to need this. And they read Glenn and where Glenn's at.
Right.
And they said, Glenn, you know what? You shouldn't, because there's a lot of acclimation, right? You go up and down to get your lungs and your brain ready for less oxygen. And sometimes the Sherpa says no, or the guide says, no, you stay in camp today. You stay at the lower level of camp. You will benefit from just staying at the lower level today and hanging out. And you're like, oh, I want to go. I'm ready. Right. I want to charge. Yeah, right. But the people that know better and can read the label on your jar, we've said it a lot, right?
Right.
So I don't know, man.
One more thing. I
love this analogy.
Yeah, let me back up to you go with a team. I mean, do people go by themselves?
No.
Okay.
I think I will say this. There are people, so everybody goes as a team.
Okay.
At base camp.
Okay.
But there are people, and I love this that you pointed that out, because there are people who say, you know what? I want to go at a different pace than my team.
Right.
I'm going to go out ahead of my team.
How does that work out?
You know what? I don't know what the percentage is, but normally they're dead. Normally their team walks past, because you actually do this. You actually walk past the dead bodies as you go on. And I really believe that the people that go by themselves, they get walked around.
Isn't that, I mean, what a beautiful story, because that's
where they say, I've got this.
I got guys, we check in the morning, and anytime between 4 and 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's just a quick check-in. Maybe it's a little, but it's just a check-in. These are my guys climbing the mountain with me. The people in the meetings are my guys. This podcast are my guys. The community of Sober.Coffee, they're my guys. They're the reason I'm not jerking ahead or falling behind, I'm with the team. I love it. Good stuff, man.
Love it, man. So maybe we change this from superpower to Everest. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't think we said the word superpower except in the...
Yeah, but here's what I've learned about the Everest shows, and about sobriety. Because there's a lot of people that can recite the big book. It's not what you know, it's what you do.
Love it.
A lot of people that know a lot of stuff and they're in the casket because they relapsed and died. It's not what you know. It's what you do.
They got complacent. They took their eye off the ball coming down the mountain.
So I love doing this with you, man. I love, it's all casual and fun coming in the coffee shop, man. But some of these episodes are real stuff, and I just love it. Just reinforces for me and for others, about living on the sober path.
Yeah. So let's keep doing it.
Love you, man.
Love you, man.
Thanks for the coffee.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.